When is the last time you sat with your heart and just worked with it? Like so that it's not contracted and afraid and protected. It takes practice to do that. And so we work with people in letting them, we give them numerous opportunities to practice this over and over and over again. And sooner or later, petal by petal, it starts to bloom, and all of a sudden, there's an authentic smile on their face. And once energy meets the heart, it goes right to the brain. We did this study where we hooked up an electrocardiogram to an electroencephalogram. And an electroencephalogram is a brain mapping machine. So we measure 19 or 26 different compartments, and we're looking to see all different kind of activity in the brain. But we measured the heart along with it, and when the heart starts beating coherently, in a sense of order, like taking a big sheet, Jay, and going like that. The heart sends a wave right up to the brain, and the brain goes into these beautiful states of alpha. The heart is telling the brain it's safe to create again. It's safe to imagine. It's safe to dream of a new future. And there's the stroke volume of the heart in order, and then you see these 2 or 3 seconds of beautiful, coherent alpha. The brain is it's in that creative state. Then there's a pause, and it happens again, and it's beauty. It's a symphony. If you don't have that mechanism, you can have all the intention in the world, but there's no carrier wave. I mean, and people, when they make energy reach their heart, there's an external field that's created. It's magnetic. It's measurable, and that energy is frequency, and if that frequency is coherent, it can carry the intent or thought on a coherent brain of that future. The energy of suffering cannot carry the thought of health or wealth. It's not consistent with it. It carries a different set of thoughts. So then the training then is getting people into those heart states, because once they start trading that fear or that pain or that frustration or trying or whatever, forcing, control, for gratitude, and they just let all that go. And I say to them, listen, if you can't feel gratitude or if you can't feel love, I just want to know what you've been practicing feeling every day. Because that feeling that you're practicing is what you're always feeling. Now let's practice feeling something else. In the beginning, it's not going to be easy, but you got to keep following the formula, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. Well, when they start feeling gratitude, it's very interesting, because the emotional signature of gratitude is that something wonderful just happened to you. Something favorable is happening to you, right? So you've just received something, or you're receiving something, you say thank you. So gratitude is the ultimate state of receiving emotionally. So when you move into a state of gratitude and you open your heart, you will accept, believe, and surrender to the thoughts equal to that emotional state, and you'll program your autonomic nervous system into a different destiny. You could say, I'm healthy, I'm healthy, I'm healthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free, and your body is conditioned into misery, and it's saying, no, you're not. No, and that thought stops right at the brainstem. It never makes it to the body, because the body is on a different program. So then, when the person starts trading that and they start opening their heart, well, their immune system gets stronger by 50%. 50% in 3 days, they start making immunoglobulins. Their body's natural defense against viruses and bacteria is 50%, not a little bit, a lot. That's one study. And so trading that, telling the body it's in the environment where it already happened. And so that's when the miracles start happening. That's when people say, I'm not doing anything. Well, of course you're not. You don't have to. Change is so hard. So then let's offer another alternative. Well, when you begin to create from the field instead of from matter, the only way you can do that is you have to learn how to take all of your attention off your body and become a nobody. Take all of your attention off all the people in your life that you give so much of your attention and energy to because you have an emotion associated with them. And get beyond all the people in your life and go from a someone to a no one. Now, if you've worked your whole life being a someone, or if you've been working your whole life thinking that you're your body, you're going to have to work a little harder because that's your identity. Sure. That's what you're associated with. And
it's a long time of conditioning that you have to unwind.
And if this was easy, everybody would be doing it. So then you have to go get beyond all the things in your life, your cell phone, your computer, your car, and literally go from something to nothing. You have to take all your attention off the place you work, the place you live, the place you need to be, the place you're sitting, and go from somewhere to nowhere. You got to stop thinking about the predictable future and the familiar past and go right into the present moment and go from some time to no time. And if you do that properly, you become pure consciousness. And that's how you enter the field. Now, we've done the research on this. We call it getting beyond the self. Now, once you are pure consciousness, you're taking all of your attention off this three-dimensional reality. Now, where you place your attention is where you place your energy. So if you've taken all of your attention off of everything material, there's only one place you're going to wind up, and that is the immaterial realm called the quantum field, an invisible field of energy that unifies and connects everything material. So now when you're creating from the field and you combine a clear intention with an elevated emotion and you're connected and you feel connected, the suggestion of an alternative way to create is that when there's a vibrational match between your energy and some future reality, you actually no longer have to go anywhere to get it. You're actually the vortex, and you will collapse space and time and draw the experience to you. Now that, to me, is a lot more fun because the experience is the unknown. You can't predict when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen, because if you can predict it, it's the known. So then you have to lay down the very thing you use your whole life to get what you want for something greater to occur. Now that goes against generations untold of conditioning and a lifetime of habituation, believing that we're trapped in this material world. And yet, I can say to you, without a doubt, that once you understand that formula, and once you know how to create that kind of brain and heart coherence, the side effect of that is a change in biology, neurologically, chemically, hormonally, genetically. We've measured it. We've seen gene regulation changes in 4 days. More brain coherence, more heart coherence. Your brain's working better. You're trusting your heart. It's open. There's different chemicals that are released. Oxytocin suppresses survival centers, resets the baseline of a person's trauma or shock. Your immune system goes up. You lengthen your telomeres. We've measured that too. So you're changing the future of your body. You're extending your life. That's evidence, right? So we have the evidence to know that it could happen because we've measured it. But the real evidence is watching the testimonial of someone who says, I had stage 4 cancer. I was told as a 41-year-old woman that I wouldn't live for more than 2 months. And I have no evidence of cancer in my body at all. Or someone that's a physician who has Parkinson's disease that's tried everything from the medical route and has one transcendental moment, and their tremors and their pain are gone. Then now they're chewing food, they're swallowing, they're blowing their nose, they're standing up on their own. That's energy affecting matter. So we have hundreds and hundreds of testimonials of people that not only healed their body, but created pretty profoundly magical things in their life. So you have evidence in the scientific world, you have evidence in the practical world, and evidence is the loudest voice right now. If your brain is a record of the past, and you are living by the same emotions that have defined you for the last 10 years, and you keep thinking the same thoughts that make the same chemicals, and those same chemicals drive the same thoughts, then your body, as the unconscious mind, does not know the difference between an actual experience in your life that creates an emotion and an emotion that you're creating by thought alone. And so your body is believing it's in the same past experience 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And your body is programmed into the past. And you can't create a new future holding on to the emotions of the past. How many people understand what I'm talking about? So then, when you react to someone or something in your life, you have a choice. That when an event changes how you feel, there's a chemical change that's taking place in your body. And most people don't think they can control their emotional reactions. And so then when you react to some coworker or some relative or somebody in traffic, the moment you react emotionally, you are altered chemically. And if you don't know how to control your emotional reaction after that event, and you allow those emotions to linger for hours or days, you know what that's called? That's called a mood. Hey, Juanito, what's wrong with you? Oh, I'm in a mood. Really? Why are you in a mood? Well, this thing happened to me 4 days ago, and I'm having one long emotional reaction. And if you keep that same refractory period going on for weeks or months, that's called a temperament. Hey, why is she so angry? I don't know. Why are you so angry? Why are you so bitter? Why are you so enchilada? Because I had this experience 7 months ago. And I'm memorizing my emotional reaction. And if you keep that same refractory period going on for years on end, that's called a personality trait. And people wear their emotions on their sleeve, and that's who they think they are. And they will talk about the past to validate why they're not creating the life that they want. So then if you wake up in the morning, Mexico City, and you are not being defined by a vision that's bigger than you, and it doesn't get you out of bed and inspire you into possibility, and you get up living from the old hardware of the past and the old emotions stored in your body, do you know what's going to happen to you? You're going to wake up and you're going to open your eyes, and you're going to see the same people and go to the same places and do the exact same thing at the exact same time. And the moment you open your eyes, all of a sudden now, it's your external environment that's controlling how you think and feel. Because you have a neurological network in your brain for every person you know, every place that you go, everything that you own, everything that you do. And the moment you open your eyes and you see the same people and go to the same places and do the exact same thing at the exact same time, it's your external environment that's turning on different circuits in your brain, causing you to think equal to everything that you know. And you told me you believe that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny. And as long as you're thinking equal to your environment, you keep creating the same life. To change, to truly change, is to think greater than your environment, to think greater than the circumstances in your life, to think greater than the conditions in your world. And every great person in history knew this. Whether it was Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, the Wright brothers, Joan of Arc.
Your personality creates your personal reality. That's it. And your personality is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. So the present personality who's listening to this podcast has created the present personal reality called their life. So if you believe what I just said, then in order for you to create a new personal reality, a new life, you're going to have to change your personality. In other words, nothing changes in your life until you change. That's the way it is. So it turns out the 90% of the thoughts that we think on a daily basis are the same thoughts as the day before. Same thoughts lead to the same choices. Same choices lead to the same behaviors. Same behaviors create the same experiences. The same experiences produce the same feelings and the same emotions. And those same feelings and emotions begin to influence our very same thoughts. And our biology, our neurocircuitry, our neurochemistry, our hormones, our gene expression, our immune system, all stay the same because we're staying the same. So then there's a principle in neuroscience that says that nerve cells that fire together wire together. You keep thinking the same thoughts, you keep making the same choices, you keep doing the same things, you keep creating the same experiences that stamp the same networks of neurons into the same exact patterns, all for the reaffirming of the same feeling, and you do that for 10 years on end. The firing and wiring of those circuitries begins to hardwire the brain into a very finite signature. That box in the brain that's created is the same level of mind. And if you keep doing that, it becomes automatic. And it turns out that 95% of who we are by the time we're in the middle of our life is a set of memorized behaviors, automatic emotional reactions, constant habits, hardwired attitudes, beliefs, perceptions that have happened just because we've just fired and wired it the same way. So there's a good possibility then, in order for us to change, we better start thinking about what we've been thinking about and change it. We have to become conscious of our unconscious habits and behaviors and modify them. We got to look at these feelings that we feel every single day, and instead of just thinking it's a feeling, say, what is this? Is this guilt? Is this sadness? Is this unhappiness? Is this pain? Is it frustration? Is it resentment? What is the feeling that I'm living by the majority of my day? Now, that's lighting a match in a dark place. In neuroscience, it's called metacognition. The word meditation means to become familiar with. That's what it means. So the more familiar with you are, I can't, it's too hard, I'm never going to change, it's my ex's fault, it's my boss's fault, it's my country's fault, it's the government, it's the weather, it's my pain, whatever that thought is that you accept, believe, and surrender to on a daily basis that's automatic, you have to become so conscious of that unconscious thought that it doesn't slip by your awareness unnoticed. You got to catch yourself saying, I'm tired, I'm unhappy, it's someone else's fault. Do you complain? Do you blame? Do you make excuses? Do you feel sorry for yourself? That personality has to change in order to create a new life. So then you have to become so aware of your unconscious habits that you don't go unconscious to them in your waking day. Then you got to sit in the fire of those emotions. And you got to watch those emotions come up, and you have to sit with them and know that there's something on the other side of them. Now, this is where most people get up and say, I can't meditate, or I'm going to call up my friend, or I'm going to get on social media and make a post. I'm going to turn on the football game. I'm going to get distracted because I need something out there to make this go away. And what we're saying is we're not relying on anything out there. That's the hypnosis. That's the conditioning. We want you to just become so familiar with that feeling that you catch yourself in your waking day. The moment you start feeling sad and your energy drops, you catch yourself. So there's an unlearning process, or a breaking the habit of being the old self process, that requires a lot of attention, a lot of awareness, and it takes energy. You got to stay conscious, right? If you think about great leaders in history that changed the course of many different cultures, what they did that was so important is they had a vision of that future. And they were able to have other people come out of their resting emotional state and begin to see that vision that they were seeing and move them into an elevated emotional state. And when they changed their energy, those people could share that same vision. Well, if you combine a clear intention and an elevated emotion, those two ingredients change people's state of being. Now the person has just moved biologically from living in the past to living in a new future in the present moment. And that's what caused millions of people to begin to make different choices, to behave differently, to do different things. And if you get enough people doing that because of mirror neurons, everybody's observing everybody do it, and you create a collective consciousness. And great leaders have the ability to based on core principles, whether it's justice or freedom or equality, to have people see that same vision and then move them out of their resting state into an elevated emotion. And then when they do that properly, those people can see that vision. If you can't change a person's energy, they'll never see that vision, because they'll be viewing the future through the lens of the past, the emotions of the past. And so great leaders have the ability to have people begin to see the same vision.
The new model of reality is about causing an effect. That means then you have to feel gratitude every day for your new experience to occur. You can't wait for your success to feel empowered. You have to be empowered to create the success. And when you teach people how to do this, and they move into a new state of being, they begin to create the life that they want. How many people are still with me? But to the materialists, they would say, well, no, I'm going to wait for my money to come and then I'm going to give thanks. And those people pretty much are living by the emotions of the past. And if you're living by the emotions of the past, you are viewing your future through the lens of the past, and your vision will fade. Because when you bring up an elevated emotion, you will see the vision clearly. And leaders in history that changed the world knew how to change a culture. Look at Martin Luther King. He talked about justice and then got enough people inspired that they felt empowered enough to do something about it. People came out of the resting state. And so then you share the same brain as Martin Luther King. And being defined by a vision of the future begins to change a culture. But most people have the same thoughts or the same intentions, and they live by the same familiar emotions, and for the most part, they're in their past. The hardest part about change is not making the same choice as you did the day before. When you decide to make a different choice, whether it's to change something that you eat or to exercise or to no longer react to certain people or conditions in your life, remember, you're going to feel uncomfortable. Now, that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing. That means you're in the unknown. And when you step into the unknown, you're going through dramatic changes in your own personal biology. When you're in that place of uncertainty, that place of unpredictability, that void, that unknown, ask yourself, what thoughts do you want to believe in and fire and wire in your brain? What behaviors would you like to demonstrate that's equal to a vision of the future? Close your eyes and rehearse them. Review every step. No different than an athlete beginning to rehearse what they're about to do. The act of rehearsing it begins to prime your brain to prepare you for that behavior in your future. And then finally, can you teach your body emotionally what that future is going to feel like before it happens? And when you begin to fall into the present moment and marry those intentions with an elevated emotion, your body is believing it's living in that future reality in the present moment, and you're changing your biology from living in your past present reality to living in your future present reality. And your job then is to be able to maintain that modified state of mind and body your entire day. And if you can, get ready, because something unusual is going to happen in your life. It's the law. I travel around the world and I have the opportunity to talk to all kinds of people. And one of the things that, independent of people's beliefs, political beliefs, religious beliefs, whatever, there seems to be a common thread that people feel like something's not right. And I think when you get to a point where you realize that no healthcare plan, no government, no religion is going to take care of you, then who is going to take care of you? And the answer is you, right? So my interest is to give people the tools and the understanding that they could heal their body, that they could create a better life for themselves, that they could overcome past traumas and scars that were created even as early as childhood that tend to be unconscious programs that keep them repeating the same, scenarios in their life, to teach people how to induce mystical experiences so that It changes the frame of the way they look at reality. And so, what an amazing time in history to be alive, because consciousness is awareness, and awareness is paying attention, and paying attention is noticing. So if a person lives a life, as an example, and is diagnosed with a health condition, what they're conscious of is just a certain number of choices that they could make based on the past, based on tradition, based on what's worked for normal or natural. But what happens when that person has done the chemotherapy, has done the surgery, has done the radiation, has done the vegan diet, has done the gluten-free diet, has done the ketogenic diet, has done all the things, all the exercise, and they still have the same health condition? It begs the question, if our personality creates our personal reality, and our personality is made up of how we think, how we act, and how we feel, then the present personality who's listening to this podcast has created the present personal reality called their life. Not their ex, not their parents, not their culture. They create their life. So the fundamental question is, if I want to change my life, then that means that I have to change, or nothing changes in my life until I change, right? So the person who's done all these treatments and still faced with a health condition, this is just an example, all of a sudden says, there's got to be another way. There's got to be something else. And so knowledge, information, when we learn knowledge, when we learn information, we make new connections in our brain. That's what learning is. We're forging synaptic connections. But that philosophical, theoretical, intellectual information is void of experience. Someone who takes that knowledge and applies it and personalizes, demonstrates it, initiates that knowledge, is now interested in the truth of the experience of that information. So the person then who becomes conscious that they could actually heal themselves by changing the way they think, the way they act, the way they feel. If I truly go into the experiment of no longer thinking the same way, no longer acting the same way, no longer feeling the same way, and I start thinking about what thoughts I do want to fire and wire in my brain, and if I do it with intention and attention, I'll begin to install neurological hardware. Keep doing it, and it becomes like a software program. It becomes a new voice in your head that goes from I can't to I can. No magic there. If you said, how would greatness live today? What would love look like today? What would be a greater expression of myself in the things that I do? Turns out if you close your eyes and you rehearse in your mind how you're going to be in any aspect of your day, if you're truly present, the brain doesn't know the difference between the inward experience of what you're imagining and the outer real experience. The brain looks like you've already done it. The brain looks like it's already experienced it. Now, do that enough times, the hardware becomes a software program, and you start behaving like a different person.
Super athletes do this all
This
the
is
time.
musicians, athletes, dancers. Everybody who's good at something is always rehearsing in their mind. That rehearsal is just as important as the physical demonstration. It's priming the brain, because the brain is a record of the past. Now you're actually making it a map to the future. You're installing circuits to use. If you said, God, I lived my whole life in guilt. I didn't know it was guilt, in shame or unworthiness and self-doubt, insecurity, fear. And all of a sudden, you're looking at that emotion and you understand that emotion is actually down-regulating genes and creating disease. You figured that out, you read about it, it makes sense. Then all of the hatred, all the anger, all the bitterness you have to someone or something in your past is keeping you connected to the past. So you'd say, can I teach my body emotionally what a new future could feel like before it happens? Not waiting for your wealth to feel abundance, or waiting for your relationship to feel love, or waiting for your healing to feel gratitude. That's the old model of reality of cause and effect. This is about causing an effect. Turns out if you can elevate your emotional state and you can sustain that emotional state, your body's so objective that it doesn't know the difference between the real life experience that's creating that emotion
And that emotion that you're creating by thought alone, your body's actually believing it's living in a new reality, a new environment. Now, the environment signals the gene. The end product of an experience in the environment is an emotion. That person is actually signaling genes ahead of the environment. Genes make proteins, and proteins are responsible for the structure and function of the body. The expression of proteins is the expression of life. Okay, every day the person practices going from the old self to the new self. This is what's happening in the world right now. As they start to change, and they start unfiring and unwiring, and they stop conditioning the body emotionally to the past and practice this, they emerge as a new personality. They become somebody else. And like magic, the disease exists in the old person, and there's somebody else. Now, here's where consciousness comes in. That person comes to a workshop, and they stand on the stage in front of 1,500 people, and they tell their story. And everybody in that audience is leaning in. Why? Because they're looking at truth. They're looking at the example.
Someone who just got healed from a chronic...
I'm talking about stage 4 cancers. I'm talking about Parkinson's disease. I'm talking about rare genetic disorders. And now the person in the audience is becoming conscious of a possibility that they were once unconscious to. And when they see that's possible, it's a 4-minute mile. I mean, 4-minute mile, nobody thought anybody could break a mile in under 4 minutes. They said it was biologically and physiologically impossible. 1,400 people have done it already. So like, this is the 4-minute mile. Someone's piercing through a limitation, a level of unconsciousness. And now that's a footprint in the quantum field. But in 3-dimensional reality, you're looking at that person and they look no different than anybody else. And the person says, if that person can do it, I can do it as well.
The majority of our thoughts and feelings are connected to our sexuality, to our victimization, our guilt, our suffering, our shame, our unworthiness, our self-doubt, or our importance, our control, our fear, our anger, our frustration, our hatred, our judgment. Those are the first 3 hormonal centers in the body. And those first 3 centers have everything to do with survival. And those centers are energy consumers. Orgasm, digestion, stress is a lot of energy that we're drawing from our very vital life force, our resource of light and information, and we're turning it into chemistry, and we're literally robbing the body's energy, right? So then living like that for the short term is okay, because the body can move back to homeostasis, it can restore itself, but when we're overdoing that consistently, then there's no energy for growth and repair, because you're living constantly in survival. So again, you can eat all the right food, you can do all the right things, but if you're living in anxiety and fear and you're viewing your world from the worst case scenario that could possibly happen, because that's what you do in survival, there's no energy for growth and repair. There's no energy for healing. So the majority of our thoughts are signaling certain circuits in the brain that signal another part of the brain, the limbic brain, to make what's called a neuropeptide. Neuropeptides are chemical messengers that signal hormonal centers. So now you're taking thought and you're storing it as energy in these energy centers. And if you're living in survival, why would you open your heart? I mean, it's just not a time to open your heart. I mean, if you're getting chased by T-Rex, it's not a time to meditate. It's not a time to learn. It's not a time to connect. It's not a time to communicate. It's not a time to sit down and go within. It's not a time to be vulnerable. It's time to run, fight, or hide. If you think about gratitude, when you receive something favorable or you just receive something favorable, if something's happening to you or something just happened to you that you are excited about, you feel grateful. So the emotional signature of gratitude means that it's already happened or something wonderful is happening to you. Now, the body is so objective that it does not know the difference between a real life experience that's creating that emotion and that emotion that you're fabricating by thought alone. So the body's believing it's living in an environmental condition that's favorable to you. And we only accept, believe, and surrender to thoughts that are equal to our emotional state. So in the state of gratitude, your body is more prone to be programmed through its autonomic nervous system into a different destiny. And the research that we've done on our research team shows that just 4 days of feeling gratitude can strengthen your immune system by 50% by releasing an immunoglobulin called immunoglobulin A, which is the body's primary defense against bacteria and viruses. It's better than any flu shot, and it's the body's natural capacity. So when we trade anger and frustration and fear and anxiety and pain and suffering and guilt for an elevated emotion, the autonomic nervous system starts to regulate back into homeostasis and balance. And of course, stress is when the autonomic nervous system is knocked out of homeostasis and balance. It's dysregulation. So we teach people how to give thanks for the things that they create in their life actually before it happens. And when we do that properly, we start to see measurable changes in the person's body and measurable changes in their energy and ultimately measurable changes in their life. So the concept of presence is such an important concept because I think that paying attention is being present, and it's a skill just like anything else. The more you practice it, the better you get at it. And I think we know when people are present with us in our lives is because they're paying attention to us, and we know when they're not present with us because they're not paying attention. Well, where you place your attention is where you place your energy, bottom line. So if you're thinking about what's going to happen in the next moment or what's going to happen in a day, or you're reviewing something that happened 3 days ago, you're placing your attention in some future scenario or some past memory. And we siphon energy out of the present moment, and we don't have available energy then to really begin to create an outcome in our lives. But if we're truly present and we're relaxed and poised in the present moment, if where you place your attention is where you place your energy, then you have a lot of energy in the present moment to execute, a lot of energy in the present moment to make decisions. The more you do this, the more you experience those moments of flow, the synchronicities, the serendipities, the opportunities, the coincidences, because there's a lot of power in the present moment. So one of the key elements in the creative process is teaching people how to relax into the present moment. So if a person is thinking about their problems, and those problems are memories that are etched in their brain that are connected to certain people and objects and things at certain times and places, the moment they think about their problems, say first thing in the morning when they wake up, if you believe your thoughts have something to do with your destiny and your brain is a record of the past, the moment you remember your problems, you're thinking in the past. And because every problem has an emotion associated because you experience it, the moment you feel unhappy, now your body's in the past. So thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body. And how we think and how we feel creates our state of being. So most people unconsciously start their day with their entire state of being biologically in the past. And again, the body's so objective, it doesn't know the difference between the real life experience and the emotion that you're creating by thought alone. So that past, that familiar past, is called the known. And if you wake up in the morning and you start thinking about the predictable future and the people you have to see and the places you have to go and the things you have to do in your routine, predictable life, the same exact thing happens. You're imagining that future scenario that's already known to you, and you're anticipating the feeling of that outcome. So that becomes, the predictable future becomes the known as well. So if the familiar past is the known and the predictable future is the known, there's only one place where the unknown exists, and that's the sweet spot of the generous present moment. And teaching people how to create from the present moment is what begins to produce the magic and the changes that take place in their lives.
What's emerging in the world now because of information is teaching people that there are other possibilities that they were unconscious to, and you don't need an authority any longer. You don't need a priest. You don't need a governor. You don't need a teacher. You don't need a doctor to gain information any longer. Information is available, but the question is, what will you do with it? So if you give people sound scientific information, and science is the language of mysticism, and you combine quantum physics with neuroscience and neuroendocrinology and psychoneuroimmunology and epigenetics and electromagnetism, and make it simple, and don't talk about tradition or religion or culture, that's going to divide an audience, but bring the model of science in. If that person can reason and understand what they're doing with that information and why they're doing it, then the side effect of how they're doing it is going to get easier. And now the application becomes essential. So what we're seeing is this emergent consciousness where people are taking their power back and not relying on anyone or anything for their own personal change or transformation. And I think that when you get enough people doing it, emergence in biology is a group of birds all moving in the same direction, of a school of fish all moving. The appearance is a larger organism. They're behaving in the exact same way. There's no leader. When you study that in biology, everybody's leading. So how are we going to change the world? It's not one person, not one consciousness. It's a collective consciousness. And the research says that collective networks of observers determine reality. Get enough people believing in possibility, sooner or later, someone's going to run into that experience. And you need one. Once you know it's possible, then other people will start doing it as well, just like the 4-minute mile. So in the world right now, I think we're seeing a breaking down of so many conventions, whether it's religion or medicine or the environment or journalism. Everything's falling apart right now because it can't sustain itself, because no organisms in nature live in this kind of abusive competition. Organisms survive in cooperation and connection and communion. Keep people in fear, keep them angry, keep them in pain, keep them all those survival emotions. You'll never have community. You bring people into an elevated emotional state, something innate in the human species says we're empathic to one another, and we celebrate one another. We want to get along with one another. We want to cooperate. We want to resolve issues together. That's who we are when we're not living in stress and survival.